Red Sea fracture, how the Caracas distraction unshackled the Horn of Africa. The death of restraint. History will likely remember the first week of 2026, not for the events in the Horn of Africa, but for the televised images of U.S. Marines securing government buildings in Caracas. The U.S. military intervention in Venezuela, justified by Washington as a restoration of democratic sovereignty, but widely condemned as a violation of the UN Charter, has paralyzed the Security Council. While the world's diplomatic bandwidth is consumed by the Caribbean, the security architecture of the Red Sea has quietly, violently collapsed. The Venezuela signal that sovereignty is now optional and the global policeman is preoccupied has triggered a chain reaction from the Bab el-Mandeb to the Sudanese oil fields. The proxy wars of the last decade have metamorphosed into direct state-on-state confrontations. The Saudi-UAE alliance is dead, buried under the rubble of Aden. Sudan has effectively split into resource fiefdoms, and on the desolate lava plains of the Bure Front, Ethiopia and Eritrea are mobilizing for a conflict that threatens to redraw the map of the Horn. The Yemen divorce, from proxy war to Operation Restoring the Camps. The most immediate shockwave is the violent rupture between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates in Yemen. For years, analysts warned of a Cold War between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi. This week, it turned hot. The trigger, Operation Promising Future. On December 2, 2025, the UAE-backed Southern Transitional Council, STC, launched a lightning offensive dubbed Operation Promising Future, seizing key government facilities in Sayun and Wadi Hadramaut. This was a red line for Riyadh. Wadi Hadramaut is not just territory, it is the corridor for Saudi Arabia's proposed pipeline to the Arabian Sea, its bypass for the Hormuz Strait. The Saudi retaliation. Saudi Arabia's response was unprecedented. Abandoning the pretense of coalition unity, the Royal Saudi Air Force provided close air support to the Presidential Leadership Council, PLC forces. January 2, 2026. PLC forces launched counter-offensive Operation Restoring the Camps. January 4, 2026. In a stunning development, Saudi-backed forces recaptured the port city of Mukalla from the STC. The mistake strike. The turning point was a Saudi airstrike on a convoy of armored vehicles near Mukalla port. Vehicles that Riyadh claimed were UAE-supplied assets violating Yemeni sovereignty. The UAE's announcement yesterday of a tactical withdrawal from Yemen is a diplomatic sleight of hand. Abu Dhabi has not abandoned its ambitions. It has simply realized that Yemen is becoming a Saudi protectorate. This defeat in Mukalla is forcing the UAE to accelerate its Plan B in the Red Sea, a pivot that places Ethiopia directly in the crosshairs of regional conflict. Sudan, the economic checkmate at Heglig. While Yemen burns, the Sudanese state has ceased to exist in any functional capacity. The war has shifted from a struggle for political legitimacy in Khartoum to a naked resource grab in the Kordofan borderlands. The Heglig catastrophe. The decisive moment occurred on December 8, 2025, when the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, overran the Heglig oil field in West Kordofan. The stranglehold. Heglig is the nervous system of the region's energy economy. It processes not only Sudan's crude, but also the vast majority of South Sudan's oil exports. Juba's panic. As of today, South Sudan's economy is effectively a hostage of General Hemedti Dagalo. Diplomatic cables leaked from Juba suggest President Kiir is considering a desperate deal. recognizing the RSF administration in Darfur, Kordofan, in exchange for continued oil flow. The zero-point scenario: the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, now headquartered in Port Sudan, have lost their fuel source. The SAF's recent drone strikes on the Mero Dam infrastructure, intercepted yesterday, indicate a terrifying new doctrine. If the SAF cannot hold the center, they will weaponize the Nile infrastructure to threaten the RSF's agricultural base. The UAE connection: intelligence indicates that the RSF's push on Heglig was facilitated by new logistical lines running from Jaras, Chad, funded by Emirati credits. With the UAE losing the port of Mukalla in Yemen, their investment in the RSF, and by extension, the gold and agricultural wealth of Western Sudan, has become their primary lever of influence in the region. The main event: the Bure Front mobilization. While the world watches Caracas and Aden, the deadliest potential conflict is brewing on the Ethiopia-Eritrea border. The Bure Front, the 70-kilometer stretch of volcanic desert separating Ethiopia from the port of Assab, is seeing the highest concentration of mechanized infantry since the 1998 war. Ethiopia's calculus: now or never. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is facing a perfect storm. The Fano insurgency in Amhara has sapped the ENDF's morale, and the economy is buckling under debt service. He needs a nationalist victory that unites the fractured country. The narrative shift. Since late 2025, Ethiopian state media has ceased using the language of port diversification and shifted to historical reclamation. The argument is simple: a nation of 130 million cannot be landlocked by colonial cartography. The Venezuela precedent: diplomatic sources in Addis Ababa suggest the Venezuela signal was decisive. Hardliners in Abiy's cabinet are arguing, if the Americans can invade a sovereign state to secure their hemisphere, we can cross 60 kilometers of desert to secure our economic survival. Eritrea's porcupine strategy. President Isaias Afwerki has responded with total mobilization. The trap. Eritrea knows it cannot win a conventional offensive war against Ethiopia's sheer numbers. Instead, they have turned the road to Assab into a kill zone of anti-tank fortifications and pre-sighted artillery. The proxy alliance. Asmara has deepened ties with the Amhara Fano militias, effectively opening a second front behind the Ethiopian army's lines. The secret deal. The UAE's Red Sea pivot. The most significant development, however, is invisible to satellite imagery. It is happening in the encrypted channels between Abu Dhabi and Addis Ababa. The Abu Dhabi-Addis Accord. We must analyze the events in Yemen and Ethiopia as a single theater. Why would the UAE accept the loss of Mukalla in Yemen so quietly? The answer lies in a rumored secret protocol signed in late 2025. The terms of the deal: 1. Financial injection. The UAE provides a $3 billion stabilization fund to Ethiopia's central bank, stabilizing the birr, and finances the ENDF's fuel imports. 2. The quid pro quo. In exchange, Ethiopia grants the UAE exclusive 99-year rights to develop a naval and commercial base at Assab, after Ethiopia secures it from Eritrea. This explains the geopolitical board. Saudi Arabia is backing the SAF in Sudan and fighting the UAE's proxies in Yemen to prevent an Emirati ring around the peninsula. The UAE, having been checked in Yemen by Saudi power, is going all in on Ethiopia. If Ethiopia seizes Assab, the UAE gets a base that controls the Bab el-Mandeb without needing to deal with the chaotic Yemeni factions. Implications for the Horn. 1. The end of the Arab Lake. The Red Sea is no longer an Arab lake. If Ethiopia moves on Assab, it becomes an African conflict zone with Gulf funding. The Saudi-UAE rift means there is no unified Gulf bloc to mediate. They are now the primary drivers of the violence. 2. The Somaliland wildcard. With Ethiopia focused on Buri or Assab, the controversial MOU with Somaliland, signed January 2024, has been temporarily shelved. However, Somalia, Mogadishu, is emboldened by the Egyptian-Turkish defense pacts. We expect Mogadishu to use this moment of Ethiopian distraction to launch incursions into the Ogaden region, further stretching the ENDF-3. Oil markets, with Heglig offline or under RSF black market control, and the Bab el-Mandeb threatened by the brewing Ethiopia-Eritrea war, insurance premiums for Red Sea shipping have jumped 40% since January 1st. The world is staring at a supply chain crisis worse than 2024. Conclusion: the unraveling. The Venezuela sovereignty violation did not cause the conflicts in the Horn of Africa, but it removed the lid. The U.S. has lost the moral authority to call for de-escalation. The UN Security Council is paralyzed. As of January 5, 2026, the actors in the Horn realize they are alone. For the UAE, it is a business calculation to pivot to Ethiopia. For Saudi Arabia, it is a security existentialism to hold Yemen. But for Ethiopia and Sudan, it is a fight for the basic definition of the state. The Cold War in the Horn is over. The resource war has begun.